especially the entrepreneurs, man, you're built to build. You're built to
Yes.
grow, to
Yeah.
have goals. Go sit on the beach. That's a vacation. That's not your retirement.
You are listening to Advised with Rick Lucchini.
Legends don't retire, and neither should you. That's what caught my attention on LinkedIn and led me to our guest today, Kyle Gabhart. Kyle wrote this book. The title rings true to me in a lot of different ways. We're talking to business owners today, Kyle. Tell me just real quick, let's unpack that. Why did you write this book, and what's the title actually mean?
Yeah, thanks so much, Rick. I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure to connect, and looking forward to the conversation. I've just seen far too many folks that will map out all the things leading up to their exit, and they, poured their blood, sweat, and tears into a business or maybe into a career, and then finally they hit that magic button, and then they're miserable. Right? They realize that their identity was tied to their career. They realize that their social circle was tied to it. And when you rip that away from them, then it's hollow. And it may be fun to, golf or hang out on the beach for a few weeks or even a couple of months. But eventually you recognize that we're built for purpose. And if we don't have something that we're pouring into, then we shrivel up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that rings true to me. I've had quite a bit of content on that lately myself, which is why that title jumped off the page at me. I just had a guest on, Scott Jagodinsky, who wrote a book, Harder to Kill, and he talks about reinvention instead of retirement. It's that same concept where, especially for the entrepreneurs, like that's who you're talking to, especially, right? Especially the entrepreneurs, man, you're built to build. You're built to grow, to have goals. And if you cut that out cold turkey, like you said, go sit on the beach. That's a vacation. That's not your retirement. Take a vacation, right?
Sure.
And then, but you need to build that second phase with some purpose to continue to have something to wake up and work for.
Right.
Or else you're going to sink into the lazy boy and you become a different person. And you could be depressed. I mean, a lot of bad things can happen going down that road. But why don't you talk to the business owner a little bit? Because I think this is something that gets lost a lot. My retirement is my business. I hear that all the time. In some cases that can be true. In some cases it's not. What about the guys and gals out there that maybe have a valuable business, but don't actually know how to monetize it, how to transition it, how to live after the business?
Yeah. No, it's such a key question. I appreciate it. I think the first thing comes from the importance of separating yourself, your identity from the business, figuring out what that looks like. And far too often what I encounter is a business owner is like, yeah, I'll figure that out after I sell, after I exit, right?
Yeah.
After I get my liquidity event, then I'll figure out who I am. And again, the problem is your identity just got ripped away. Your purpose and your social circle got ripped away. That's something you got to figure out earlier while you're still building, while you're still growing, is find out, hey, who am I separate from this business? And I'll give you a real concrete example of how to do that, right? We've got built into Bluegrass, to my firm, every 4 years, each team member gets a 1 month paid sabbatical. And that is above and beyond normal time off. And it's very intentional to give them a separation from the business.
Yeah.
You can spend a week or two vacationing, no problem. By week 3, you kind of have to figure out something else because it gets tiring doing nothing. Yeah. And so the full 4 weeks all together that you have to take all at once are intended to do a little soul searching while you're still building, while you're still growing. And the same is true for me. So I'm taking my next sabbatical actually this upcoming June when the World Cup comes to North America. I'm just spending all of June just going all over the country going to games.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I practice what I preach. It's important to get that separation and spend some time just with yourself, spend some time journaling, and find that identity separate from your work.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And anybody out there that was a athlete, maybe high school, but definitely college, if you were a college athlete at any level, because that's how connect with that, because I'm so far away from any version of retirement. It's hard to connect to that other than through my clients. But I have already lived it once, going from athletics to like nothing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you wake up and you don't have anything to train for. You don't have any like goals. And you're
Good
like,
point.
shit, I should have figured this out like a couple years ago, because that's what my whole life and identity was revolved around.
Right.
And if you built a business or was part of someone who built a business and nurtured it for all these years, unfortunately, that a lot of that is who you are, just because you lived and breathed it all the time. And if you don't learn how to separate yourself from it, when you lose it, you might be wondering who the hell you are.
That's so true.
Yeah. So how about what about the actual money side of it? Let's say I got it all figured out. I've got this great second half plan. Maybe it's starting another business that doesn't need to be as profitable because now I can afford to be retired. But I always had a passion for, tacos, and I'm going to open a food truck and sell my commercial business, right? Whatever that is, I got it all figured out. I'm watching the grandkids part. I'm happy. How do I actually, like, what are some of the things people are missing or not planning for correctly when they have a business that isn't, not everybody's knocking down the door to buy it. Like, there's a lot of really good small businesses, right? Less than 10 employees, making me as the owner a good living, but there's not like this, like a line out the door of people offering me 10x to buy it. How do I go about that process of not only valuing it, but finding somebody that's going to pay me what I think it's worth, but also not run my baby into the ground?
Yeah. No, it's an
It's hard.
important, yeah, it's an important perspective, Rick. So I think Stephen Covey says it best from the 7 Habits: begin with the end in mind. Far too often the thought is, well, I just need to build this thing, I need to grind, and whether it's my first business or my fifth business, I just need to focus on growth and building, and someone's gonna want to
Yeah,
buy whatever I've built.
sure.
And yet if we aren't careful, what we've done is build a great job for ourselves
Yeah.
instead of building an actual business, an actual asset. So, wife and I just got back from 2 weeks in Europe, and I did not bring my laptop. I did not crack an email.
Yeah.
The business kept running, it kept cranking because of systems and processes and having the right team in place and empowering people with the ability to make decisions. And it's about creating it as a business that isn't tethered to you from a day-to-day perspective, but also from an identity perspective, right? Like, can people conceive of the business as separate from the business owner, or do they see them as one and the same? And so
Yeah.
all of that, the branding, the processes, the people, to where it's truly an asset, not just a job.
Yeah, that's super important, and that's kind of where my head was going. You just articulated it better. I know a lot of folks that, and they'll tell you like they know it's a concern, but they're not doing anything to fix it. I'm the business. Like if I died tomorrow, you know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
a this is an actual problem because everything's up here. It's not, there's not systems built out. It's not in a CRM. It's not in all these other processes with people that can run it around you. You're the asset. And
Yes.
that's really difficult to sell.
Right.
That's really difficult to sell. And in fact, a lot of people that might be interested in buying might look at that and say, well, without him,
Yeah. Like,
there is no business. We should just compete because when
right.
he's gone, we'll just grab all that business for free and not give him a multiple on his earnings.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And furthermore, by building the business to where it's all tied to you, which granted is an ego boost, and I get why
Yeah.
there's the appeal there. Not only are you creating something that isn't as appealing for someone else to potentially buy, and maybe they choose to compete, but you also have a greater likelihood of burnout.
Oh yeah.
So about 6 weeks ago, I met with a client, and he's just been killing it. Super profitable business, but he's getting burned out. He's getting tired, and he goes, "Hey, I think I just want to sell it and walk away from the table with a pile of cash. I'll pay off some debts that I've got. Wife and I will take a really nice trip, and then I'll kind of figure out what the next stage of life is going to be." And so I sat down with him to walk through the process of really understanding what it was that was driving him to want to sell the business. And ultimately, what we discovered is that by going through a series of steps of disentangling him to the business,
Yeah.
setting up systems and processes, getting some elements that are more scalable in place, we got it to the point that he's like, oh, well, if we do all those things, actually that solves all my concerns. I don't feel like I need to sell it because it's just cranking out cash. And the illustration that I so often use for folks is, have you ever seen that HGTV show, Love It or List It?
Yes.
Yeah. So like you're living in a house and you and your family are dealing with the frustrations of it. But whenever it's finally time to sell it, you fix all the stuff that's broken. You change all the things that you should have changed a decade ago.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, gosh, we fixed this place up for someone else to live in. Maybe we don't need to move now.
Yeah.
And so I just find that so often with business owners is like, hey, let's get the business tuned up now while you're running it. And then you can love it or list it. And if you want to just keep printing money once it's a smooth, easy business, then you can do that. Or if not, then you get a better multiple. I mean, it's a win-win either way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And that rings true for you too and salespeople too.
True.
Because what they're telling me, all the reasons why they want to retire or retire early, and all I'm hearing is you just want some time. You don't know, you don't want to do absolutely nothing for the next 40 years. You don't want to not have purpose. And in fact, you probably can and should still produce revenue or produce income. The job you have is what you need to leave, not all jobs completely, right? So
good.
That particular one is burning you out, has you on call all the time, all that sort of stuff. If you left there and did something that you loved and only earned half as much,
yeah,
look at how much more it impacts your retirement. That's how much more you don't have to take out of your portfolio. You can execute that 11 years earlier, like all this stuff. Because what you're telling me is you want to spend time with your family, not do nothing forever. And so it's the same with the business owner. Like, I got to get out from under this thing because it's burning me out. Well, what if you paid somebody to do the stuff you don't like?
Yeah.
And then just tested it out from there, right?
Right.
So how do you deal with, because I see this a lot in my area in a small town, the small businesses, maybe, 20 employees or less, and they have some children involved. Okay. So this is not a 4-hour long episode. So let's not go down all the issues, but like, how do I reconcile that this is my retirement plan, or this is the asset that I built, and I also do want my kids to continue to working in here? And how does that work? So like, it works for everyone. Mom and dad don't get the short end of the stick,
right?
But the kids still are set up.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack there. First of all, I will just say anyone that's operating in a truly, family business, my heart goes out to you.
Yeah.
My hire number 1 and hire number 3 were both family members. And within 2.5 years, I had to fire both of them. And it was brutal. Yeah. So it's tough. And I've worked with plenty of family businesses. And when it works, it's great.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, it can get ugly and messy and painful. So my heart goes out to anybody dealing with that. Okay. So going back to sort of the begin with the end in mind piece, right? Like, I believe succession planning is something that needs to be designed from the get-go. What tends to happen is that people are building and building and growing. And once they get exhausted, the burnout that we were talking about, or just they reach a different kind of, mental, emotional stage of life, and just they have different priorities or whatever it might be. Maybe the business is finally providing the level of income they're looking for. And so they pivot and want to spend more time focused on relationships. Whatever the reason is, they're like, okay, now I'm going to start thinking about succession planning. But as an illustration, my primary business, Bluegrass Legacy Group, we're on a 20-year succession plan, and we are in year 3 of the 20-year plan. Okay. So it started with identifying who the next primary successor was going to be, and I've been training him for the last 3 years. He's buying 5% of the practice in March. And then over time, we're going to broaden the ownership base, and more ownership will be offered to buy into others. But like, it's an overarching ramp. Yeah. That's not, and there's no family currently in my business, But I'm going to say that's even more important in a family run business, is to say, hey, let's broaden the timeline. Let's think about what it looks like to incrementally equip people with the skills that they need and to give them tidbits and bites of ownership versus the, hey, we're just going to build this until we're tired and then we're going to throw it at the next generation. And since you have the right last name, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's super important. And that kind of ties back to the processes and separating yourself from the only person that can do the thing, right?
Right.
I mean, that's so powerful, whether you're selling it to someone else, a one-time buyer that shows up when you're ready to sell, somebody that's been working in the business, like you said, that which is preferable that you've already have a succession plan in place. All those things, you can't be the key, the only key that knows everything, that has all the relationships, the one that's going out there getting the bit. You can't be that. And the time to start putting those things in place is now. If you're listening to this, it's now, and that has nothing to do with what age you are or anything. It doesn't matter. It's now, right?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I'm a whopping 46 years old.
Right.
And so when we started the succession plan, I was 43.
Right.
So it's not for when you're at
This
the
is
end of
not
life.
That's right. Well, so tell me about this too, because this is something that I think about often, and you have to have the availability to do it. But I see this a lot, maybe more in service practices, CPAs, partnership type practices, advisory practices like myself. What about the version where I don't ever really retire? I just retain less equity and have less responsibility. So at some point I built this big thing and maybe I still have 25% and have some, like, board seat or basically help make some overarching quarterly decisions, but I've given enough equity away that there's a managing director, there's partners that are actually running the business, but I'm still getting a retirement check for the baby that I built versus selling it all and walking away with, as the business produces, I continue to produce. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I appreciate you bringing it up. I think that we've done a disservice in the industry because there's kind of this one image in mind of what an exit means.
Yeah.
And we think of an exit as this singular event that occurs. It occurs at the very, very end.
Yeah.
It's one giant transaction. It's the huge, like, publishers clearinghouse style check that you
Yeah.
receive, and then
Yeah.
you run off into the sunset. And that could work, but there's so many ways in which there's risk attached to that.
Yeah.
And there's so much delay associated with that. And so much is riding on that one button you're going to push. And that's problematic for the business owner. It's problematic for the team. It's problematic for the clients and customers that are served. And I think it's really important, and it varies depending on the industry as to what makes sense, but I think it's really important to think in terms of a phased approach, multiple bites at the apple, and what it can look like to slowly over time hand off the reins and release some of the ownership. And not only does that de-risk it for the clients and for the business, but from a business owner standpoint, now you're getting liquidity for this truly tremendous asset that you're building, as opposed to that all happening at the end.
Well, let's go there for a second, because that's a really good point, is the liquidity. I have this asset, and let's just assume that I've built such a good machine that it's better for me in most cases to pump money back into it than into the market or traditional investments. And that there's a lot of cases where that's true. But now I've got my biggest asset by far
Yes.
is all tied up into the business. That's also the thing that's giving me cash flow, right? So we can leave the risk off of the conversation for another time, but just the liquidity. Talk
Yes.
to me about, like, having to wait, like almost what we just talked about there. Why wait until you're 65 to have any liquidity from this massive asset that you've been building? And what are some ways that people that are in that situation now in their 40s and 50s can start to access some of that liquidity, and how that ties into the eventual succession, because it all ties together if you do it correctly.
Yeah, well, and I think a little bit of the problem too is that people are running absolute figures in an Excel spreadsheet and going, well, gosh, it doesn't make sense for me to, for example, at 46, I'll be 47 when it happens, to sell 5% of the firm to my Gen 2 advisor. Like, that's the best deal on the planet. It'll be the best 5% he ever buys.
Yeah.
And what am I giving away? And oh my gosh. And like, sure. But what you're buying is invaluable, which is someone with skin in the game.
Yeah.
What you're buying is someone else who's going to be locked shoulder to shoulder with you, helping you build this.
Yeah.
What you're buying is that person not getting sniped by a bigger firm that can write a fat check day one.
Yeah.
And so part of it is about seeing the whole animal and going, okay, there's value to getting liquidity now. There's value to getting someone else bought in. There's value to building this as a team instead of building it by yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to, give up absolute value that could be produced for you on the back end of it. But there's so many more elements and ingredients to it that are relevant, not the least of which, to your point, is like freeing up that liquidity is huge, because the alternative is, well, then you've got to go get a loan, and then you've got to pay for it with just profit of the business.
Yeah.
And so it really is a synergistic win-win. And ideally, if you think about it as a cash flow engine that's being built, every percent that you're selling off to a team member is going to ultimately be replaced by just the trajectory of the business's increased growth, and not having it rely on you. That theoretically your income stream from the profit shouldn't change, right? If you're partnering with the right people.
Right. Yeah. And that's similar to changing the valuation when you get an influx of cash, wherever that comes from, right? Like, I gave up X percent, but my smaller percent is worth the same or more the next, theoretically should be more the next day, because of what we can do with all this capital now.
Absolutely.
Right. And because the business literally is just worth that much more tomorrow because that capital is in our bank. And it's the same with human capital, where I'm investing in this other person who now has skin in the game, theoretically should be working as hard or harder. They're bringing business in, they're doing all these things, whatever it is, and they're taking the stress off of me to say, I took a month off and the business didn't run off the rails and go into the ditch. Like, things are still happening, and I just come back and everything's smooth sailing. Like, that's worth it to me, right? And then that sets up the future succession plan and things like that. So if I'm listening to this, it doesn't matter what the size of the business is. I'm listening to this and I've had my head down just trying to grow this thing. I say all the cliche things like, I'll never retire, I'll die at my desk, I'll figure it out when I come, or I'm just going to make it worth so much money that none of it matters, because I'll have just, all the things that you've heard. I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should care about this. What are a couple things that person can start to do right now to get the wheels in motion to really figure out what their next step should be?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The first thing, and it's going to sound wild, but for someone who is really far off from selling, but I'm saying the first thing is figure out what your business is actually worth, like as an asset, not the income stream that you're living off of, not the fact that half of your life you're like laundering through the business and various expenses. Yes, business owner, I'm looking at you. But like truly as an asset, if you were to go and sell it, what is it worth? Because a lot of business owners don't know, or they know based off of, well, I play golf with my buddy, he got 3x, I'm pretty sure I'll get 3x. Like, what? It's not how that works. Your businesses could be dramatically different. And, so actually understanding the formula and knowing the value of it, and begin tracking the value of your business as an asset, the same way that you would track your income statement, the same way you would track your P&L, have that enterprise value become one of the metrics that's on your dashboard. And then each year have a goal of, all right now our enterprise is worth $3.5 million. And our goal is by the end of the year to be at 3.8 or whatever the figure is.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't
then
matter.
what are the steps we need to take to make that a reality? And of course, in the world of multiples, you could make a handful of adjustments. And then we're not talking about going from 3.5 to 3.8. We're talking about going from 3.5 to 9 or 12 or, so on. So it gets pretty interesting, pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point is once you know it, once you know what goes into it, I should say, it's easier to focus on the things that drive it. So you might be surprised what made your business more valuable or less value based on how it was analyzed. And then you can look at those KPIs and say, hey, they're really focusing on this, or they're really looking at this spread. We need to fix that because we could literally have the same clients or the same revenue or all that same stuff. And my business is worth 40% more tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Let's get that piece of software, fire that one person and do this other thing. And like literally we're worth that much more tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, no, it's huge. Or to realize, oh my gosh, 15-20% of our business is contingent on that one contract or on that one big client. And while that served us really well because we got a great relationship with them, from the perspective of someone on the outside, that looks terrifying.
Yeah.
And if we could diversify our revenue stream a bit, it would
Yeah.
substantially increase the value of the enterprise.
100%, especially when that one big account or that one big client is playing golf with the owner all the time. And like, you just assume like if that owner's gone, there's a really good chance that
Yes.
guy's at least going to shop around. Right. And then all of a sudden a quarter of our business is off the books. You're right. When I'm looking at that as the buyer instead of seller, that's not attractive to me. That is scary
No,
as hell.
it is.
I think
Which actually goes back to the whole mentality of a business owner and entrepreneur, which I think is fascinating, right? Going back to the thing of 80% of your net worth, statistically speaking, for business owners is tied up in their business. If you encountered a client and 80% of their net worth was in Apple stock,
yeah,
you would be terrified for them.
that's right.
Apple's a really well-run business, like has an amazing track record. But still, you're like, yeah, but what happens if they're the next Enron?
Yeah.
What happens when, one, law gets passed or one supplier gets changed or all of a sudden it turns out that every Apple phone has been funding blood diamonds in Africa and now people hate Apple, like whatever could happen, right? And so but the moment that it's like, well, yeah, but I've got control of my business or I've got control of the person I golf with in that relationship, I feel secure in that. It's just a totally different mindset. It's interesting how quickly it changes.
Yeah, it really is. And I love this idea. And again, if you're a business owner and you're starting to think about exiting, take Kyle's advice and start thinking about why you want to and what that looks like, because what you might uncover is you don't need to sell right away. You need to restructure your business so that you can live the life you want and still have the business pay you. Or you are going to sell, that's fine, but after you do, you have purpose and meaning, whether that's another business, whether that's charity, it doesn't matter what the hell it is. It just can't be, oh my God, the first 2 months of vacation's over. Now I don't know what I'm going to do and I'm not motivated anymore. That's scary for an entrepreneur. You need to have a plan, whether it's keep it and make it better or whether it's make it better and sell it. Make it better is kind of the point, right?
I was going to say the thing there is make it better.
Yeah,
because we just get used to operating in what we are in. But I love the love it or list it framing. I think is so key.
Because it makes so much sense, and it is difficult to let go of control, because ultimately that's what you have to do when you start implementing some of these things. You have to hire people and trust them to do the thing, not
Amen.
stand over them and do it for them, because that kind of defeats the purpose, right? And so we need to hire good people, trust them to do the thing, coach them when they make a mistake, but you've got to let go of a little control or you are going to get burnt out and you are going to dramatically reduce what you can sell this thing for, because a buyer is going to look at this and say, that guy or that girl is the business.
Yep.
And if we just wait them out to retire, we can hang a shingle right beside them and take all their clients. That's what I would say. You know what I mean? That's what I would think. I love this. Kyle, tell everybody where they can learn more about this stuff, where they can pick up your book, follow you on social media, anything like that.
Yeah, perfect. Appreciate it. So KyleGabhart.com is kind of the central location to get this stuff together. The book is Legends Don't Retire, and Neither Should You.
Love it. Thanks, buddy.
You bet.
All right.